Week 10 is wrapping up, and we are going to talk to you about the FAAB pickups you want, as well as league leaders in save, hold categories. It's time for dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Brendan Rodgers that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out we're delivering tips and strategies. I'm Tyler Childs, joined again by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. It's a little extra blur today.
Blur?
I don't know what's over. Yeah, we got blur. You are static. You're like in the Matrix here tonight.
Maybe it's just that light, that intense light coming down on me. Sorry, everyone. I know everybody just wants to see me. The podcast listeners, they're happy. They don't have to worry about this.
Yeah, because when I took you off the screen, no blur. When I put you back on the screen, blur. So I don't know what happened in the midst there, but
it's because I don't have my sunglasses on, probably. Sorry. Well, look at that. Red Sharks 13. Thanks. I don't have them on because my eyes have been so sore that I feel like if I covered them, it would just get worse. Yeah, anyway. So Ty, how are you? I know you said you were having a pool party today.
Yeah, we did pool party today at Mom's. Took the little guy in for his first pool action. He loved it, ate it up, swim with the Sharks. So thank you, Red Shark, for back-to-back weeks jumping in on the beginning. A little water segue. So there we are. Let's dive in, Robbie. So before we do, I think we have to appropriately take some moments here.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Ooh, why the captain? Are you a captain in cola? Happening right now?
I'm rum and coking tonight.
Oh, look at this guy. We do have to take a quick moment just on the Red Shark thing and recognize that he's a Red Sox fan. They're getting tuned. So I'm pretty confident the entire Red Sox bullpen is heading to their nearest CVS to pick up neck braces. There was some laser beams sent over some shoulders today.
There are some rough bullpens in MLB period, and on everyone's fantasy team, our bullpens all suck, which is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about it tonight. But the Red Sox showed a weakness today that everyone's been talking about. The starting rotation is, walking that wire that it's all going to snap off. But I mean, we've been fearing as Jays fans that same thing. But for Toronto, we really only have two guys anyway, so it's not like we're doing much better, Tyler. Like if Dolis is on, we're okay. So it's Dolis, Romano, and then cross our fingers.
That's right.
And even with those guys, it's not like smooth sailing, lock and load. But yeah, so the only thing I wanted to say that I didn't say earlier, before I even ask what you're drinking, is that today I chopped down 2 trees.
Look at this guy.
2 trees, and like
basically Thor.
Decent diameter. One of them hit the house. I knew it was going to. We either had to lose our internet cable, smack it onto the road, which would have went over our fence and caused some problems, with Sunday traffic, or it was going to go bump up against the house, and then I could strap it onto the back of my truck and pull it forward. And that's what we did. So it just touched the eaves trough, but luckily it was at the old part of the house above where I am right now. And that eaves trough's just like wrought iron, like that thing will not move. So it barely put a little ding in it and then just popped the ladder up and tapped her out. The wife was okay with the move. So I made her drive the truck, and then I held on to the tree and yanked it as she pulled it. It was the whole thing. Good times. So what are you drinking?
Ray's just there directing traffic.
Ray was just sitting beside Mom, just saying, "Go, Mommy, gas."
I am. How about Woodford? So it's definitely, I need to get across the border desperately. I'm tired of my 2-bullet selection here.
I can loan you a boat or sell you a canoe if you want to cross. I'm
just
apparently
picturing crossing. I'm just picturing crossing like in that Ace Ventura scene where he's like does the Mission Impossible to get over the rail with the little fan boat. Like
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, well, that's the tightrope that we walk. If we want to get a variety of alcohol. But for us tonight, talking end of week 10 and start of week 11. Ty, we were just discussing the home league before we came on because it's Sunday night. There's only the one game, and I'm very sad to say that I am currently in third place, and I have tied the team that is in 11th place. And that's after they had a huge Sunday with like a batting average over 450 and 4 dingers and all these things. And the only thing I was contemplating doing, which you yourself said you were contemplating doing, was picking up and streaming Patrick Sandoval today. But I realized that he wasn't going to help me with where I needed my pitching categories today. And I don't know. Would he have helped you? He had a great day. Or I shouldn't say great day. He had a perfectly
I don't think
good
it
day.
would have made a difference. I would have had to lose almost 0.5 off of my hits per 9, or I would have needed about the same off of my ERA, and I don't think he would have done either of those.
Yeah, no, he did. He wasn't dominant. The walks were okay. I think he issued 1 walk, and then 4 Ks, got the win, quality start, like good. And just to sum it up for everybody who's been like, Wise Rob crazy about Patrick Sandoval, like he was one of my top 50 prospects last year for production over the next 5 years. So we're getting that now. Obviously, with the top 50 guys, you want to be getting them right. Whereas, we were discussing Arizona being someone we were right on. That was right at the end of the season. And now we're getting a full season here. Patrick Sandoval in his last month for 20 innings has a 2.70 ERA, 19 Ks. I think this is going to be 26 innings, not counting today. So 26 counting today, 23 Ks, a 2.70 ERA. He's been good and just got his first quality start. So I think he's going to be part of that 6-man rotation moving forward, which is, of course, the problem with Patrick Sandoval is that it'll be 1 start a week. So,
well, I mean, it certainly can't be worse than the other guys in that rotation. So he has that going for him.
Come on, Ohtani's fine. Okay. And Andrew Heaney had fine. 1 good start.
But Ohtani's like the hokey pokey. He's got 1 foot into that rotation, 1 foot out.
Yeah, there was an interesting.
Man's just shaking them all about,
Well, you know how DeGrom, I don't remember how it all shook out Friday night, but DeGrom had more RBIs than he had runs allowed for the year. So everyone like Mets Twitter was all excited about that. Oh, he's the best. And then someone said, has anyone ever done this before? And I just replied back very cautiously. I assume Ruth has done that before, and Ohtani did last year because Ohtani only pitched a couple times last year and then had, I think, 30-ish RBIs or maybe something like that. Anyway, so then that created like a thread of evil where it was like, Ohtani's not a pitcher. Ohtani's not a whole bunch of things, right? Oh, that's not what I meant. I meant just a starting pitcher or only on the days he pitched. Like, well, that wasn't what the guy said. I wonder if anyone else has ever done this, right? Well, yes, like I'm sure Babe Ruth did. And again, I'm sure Ohtani did it last year. I'm also sure he's going to do it this year. He may have also done it in 18, I think, when he broke in. May have done it. I'm not sure. But either way, what DeGrom is doing is great. The offensive side, if you're trying to say, if Mets fans were trying to say he's good at offense, he's not on our list of FAAB targets for offensive players. So he's not that good. So everybody just needs to calm down. It's luck. I would say his hitting would be luck. His pitching is amazing. Right.
I wouldn't say Ohtani, I wouldn't say luck because hitting at the major league level
5 RBIs
is more than luck. Yeah, but hitting at the major league level is never luck, ever. Okay. There's a certain amount of skill required to hit, period, at that level.
We're going to mention Dan Vogelbach, former All-Star, on this. It's more of a watch list target, so we can get into.
Now you're talking about a guy that needs luck. There's a difference.
Okay. Good way to differentiate. So let's go to the first guy, which is Max Stassi with those Angels, 17% owned in Yahoo. We again reference Yahoo just because that seems to be a pretty standard, setup. If it's a 2-catcher league, he's probably owned or about to be owned today. So you got to get in on him. But he's early in his season, 9 for 18 in the last 7 days, 345 average on the season, 11 runs, 8 RBIs, 3 dingers. What's his K? 18 Ks to 5 walks, which I mean, it's almost 4-1. That's not bad for a catcher. When Ty and I have talked about it before, I think we still agree on this, Ty. You want counting stats from your catchers, and you want to limit the damage on average and or OPS, OBP, depending on your setup. And that means that Max Stassi right now is a perfectly viable catcher option. I would even venture to say in a 12 league if you're going to stream. Like
You
if
need
you're
to
going to
survive.
stream that catcher, yeah.
Yeah. Max Stassi's survival mode, right? Like that's what he is. Like, you know, he's not going to win you a championship. He's going to keep you in contention. That's
That-
all Max Stassi should ever be in a shallow league. Deep league, different animal, right? As you said, two catcher leagues. He's owned everywhere as he should be. But yeah, if not, like this is a deep league only starter, but a good pickup for a gap filler, right? We talk about these kind of guys all the time.
Yeah,
A guy-
and no value, right? So even if he's owned, if by chance he's owned in a bigger league, I mean, I don't know that he's starting. He could just be like roster fodder on that for that dude. And as soon as you hit it up, what's going to happen is you're going to get the Roto Ronnie. Oh, you mentioned the player. Now I want more for him. So it's a difficult tightrope to walk if he is owned, but if he's not, and to Ty's point, like stream it. That's what this isn't like. This isn't a dynasty pickup where you're like locked and loaded. Max Stassi's going to do it. It's like, hey, look, a catcher who doesn't suck right now. Let's take it. If I'm an Austin Nola owner in several leagues, I'm waiting for him to get it done. I've had Jacob Nottingham, who, if you don't count average, he could be of some use, but he just keeps getting DFA'd because he's just not valuable enough. So I've been suffering. Max Stassi is one of those guys. I reach out to that owner. Hey, what can we get something done?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Like minimum investment.
And a guy that a lot of people think fits that category, Adam Duvall, is not that guy right now. 280 over his last 7 games. You know, definitely, interesting. He's 205 overall, 200
in
at bats.
200 at bats. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, there's enough here, but we know what Adam Duvall is. He's a power bat that has blips, right? I mean, very similar to like a Jesse Winker on the splits conversation, right? A very similar player, different profile, but very similar outcomes. Given the at-bats, right? So 23 runs so far this season, 41 RBIs, 12 home runs, 70 Ks to 11 walks.
So, barf.
Yeah, you're
so
not
outside of 5x5, like if you count strikeouts against like points leagues, if it's a half a point, I don't even know if you want a chance Duvall. Because he's not getting it back with walks, right? If you're losing half a point for a strikeout and maybe gaining a half a point or a point, check your league settings on that if you're points leagues. But I think he's hurting you way the heck more. But again, this is like a 5 outfielder league. You can afford Adam Duvall.
Yep.
Like you've got room for for those counting stats and the fact that they should continue right along this year. Absolutely. Like he could easily end up with 80 plus ribbies easily.
Well, and in daily start leagues, you should know that Adam Duvall is a lefty split guy, right? You want him in there against lefties. So if you do have depth in your lineup and that's a spot you're trying to, fill, Adam Duvall versus lefty is a great way to do that. So sticking with the lefty theme, Billy McKinney in New York has been getting playing time for like the first time in his career. So good for him. I know a lot of people are like, Billy McKinley, why are we talking about him? I've talked about him before, Robbie. Like, this is a guy when he was in Toronto, I said, this guy's not as bad as people think he is. He makes good contact, hit a lot of laser beams all over the field in Toronto. I shouldn't say all over the field, mainly just to right field. So if he's got to beat the shift. I haven't watched enough of him this year to see the distribution. So, Robbie, I don't know if you've seen enough of it yet, but 277 over his last 47 at-bats, 18 runs, 19 RBIs so far this season, a couple stolen bases, which is nice. Moderate speed, kind of 10 to 15 steals over a full season would be the target there. 7 home runs. The power's there. Like Billy McKinney can hit for power. 35 strikeouts and 11 walks so far.
Yeah, and the nice thing with McKinney is, again, back to like Max Stassi, no value, right? Came into the season, no value. A month ago, no value, and he's kicked around on rosters, including mine we talked about it on the last episode, in 30-team leagues, right? He's owned in 30-team leagues. I'm going to check in my 24 teams points league on CBS if he is owned, and I'll let you know what the percentage as well is. But he's one of those, like, he's on the Mets. The Mets have a lot of injuries. Playing time is not a concern yet, but it will be. So you can't think of him as a guy to trade for. But again, if you can, package him for a bit, because Peraza, who has primarily been second base, but once upon a time when he was with Cincinnati and with Boston, they moved him around to the outfield. Well, he's been playing well. So he might now, because I forget who it is that's coming back with the Mets. Like McNeil will be back very soon, and somebody else
back next week. Nimmo's out for a while though with the torn ligament in his finger.
Yes. And Conforto's still out. It's just that they might just move Peraza and start to eat a few of those at bats. But if a genuine outfielder is playing good outfield, if they are effective at the dish, why would you take those at bats away when you can bring a guy like Peraza, who's on a minor league deal, bring him in and just have him come in 7th inning and later? So, McKinney might lose an at bat here and there, but over the course of a week of 23 at bats, if that goes down to 19, that's not going to be a huge, like, that's one hit you're losing, right? So it's not the worst thing. But here, I'll have a quick look.
Well, and the only other thing that's worth noting is, like, JD Davis has been out, right? So you've had Luis Guillermo or Jonathan VR or, God, heaven forbid, Brandon Drury rolling out there. So you still could see Dominic Smith slide back into third here, and they find a way to get McKinney some extra at-bats, right? Because as much as Peraza has been a nice, pleasant surprise, right, that the shine has kind of started to wear off with Peraza. The average is back down to 209, 650 OPS, right? So, we're seeing that, what we've come to expect out of Peraza. He always gives you that little flash of excitement, and then, it turns back into a pumpkin. So, I really think you might see Billy McKinney find some extra bats, and there's no guarantee you're going to see Kevin Pillar in center field every night, right?
They didn't sign him to be a starter. Yeah, like, Pillar wasn't signed to be a starter, and as we know, he is the kind of guy who, like, streaks, and he'll have a good push, and then he can regress a little bit. Billy McKinney, just for everybody,
you mean shows up for the first quarter of the season and then disappears? Is that sorry?
Well, that's a streak. It's a start of the year.
I just want to make sure everyone else is aware of that, because that's what it is.
He is one of those strong start. But last year he didn't do too bad after he went to Boston, I don't think. I'm trying to remember. I feel like he ended the year decent. But Billy McKinney, just put a bow on the CBS thing, rostered in 8%, but only started in half that in 4. So if you are playing CBS and you're thinking maybe this might be a guy, well, there you go. You got a 92% league-wide or site-wide chance that he's available in your league. If he is owned, the guy might not even be starting him. So knock on the owner doors, see what you can do. And again, check MLBTradeRumors.com. I don't know who to reference on Twitter that would be that. You can always find us at Dingers Pod, Ty at Tourney Boss, or myself at Robbie Baseball 1 if you're looking for info, things like that, because we do the work. We certainly prefer if you would tag at Dingers Pod as opposed to DMing me. But if DMing me is the way that you prefer, okay.
We should just start screenshotting it.
Well,
every time
yeah.
somebody DMs it, just screenshot it. Anyway, the point is, go ahead.
I did have a lot of people and some newer ones. So thank you if you are new to the podcast, who DM'd me for starters for the weekend. And Saturday, I was not using my phone. So I did not reply to any of the messages, not because I didn't care about anybody, but simply because I did not have my phone with me yesterday while I was, living my life. And when I looked today, I had a few more of the same people who were saying, who should I stream today? And I'd looked at options before, and the 2 guys I had picked to stream for Saturday were Jackson Cower, who in points format was like -3, I think, or -7, and Germain Marquez, who that was a mistake to start him in Cincinnati. But he was minus as well. So that's for points. Like, they both blew up is what I'm getting at. But anyway, yeah. So a lot of people that have been DMing, I just prefer if we could get some of that traffic to the podcast account at Dingers Pod, so that some more ears and eyes can find us right now. So let's talk about a former Met, if you want to transition.
Well, before we do, real quick, fun fact. So I want you to take a stab at this season WAR. I know it's a little bit outside of what we normally talk about, but WAR for Billy McKinney versus Kevin Pillar. What do you got so far in this short season so far?
Oh, geez. I'm good. I'm just
going
to say
big numbers. They're not big numbers.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe McKinney's 1, maybe Pillar's 0.3.
Close on Pillar. Pillar's 0.2. McKinney's 0.6.
Okay.
Right.
So McKinney hasn't had enough time yet.
Yeah. All I'm trying to get at is McKinney is giving you more value right now than Kevin Pillar, whereas most people see it the other way around. So just kind of a paradigm shift there for you. But yes, former Met Ahmad Rosario has been killing it. My grandpa is a diehard Cleveland fan, diehard. And so I saw him on Saturday, and for him to speak nicely of anyone they acquired in trade, it doesn't normally happen. But he had lots of really good things to say about Ahmed Rosario. So,
oh, really?
For me, that is a stamp of approval. My grandpa knows a lot about baseball. We get into the weeds when we're talking baseball. So you get the grandpa stamp of approval on Ahmed Rosario. So you can pretty much take it to the bank.
Wasn't your Randy Quaid's character in Major League, wasn't that based on your grandpa as one of the super fans?
No.
If you don't get the reference, it's great.
No, my grandpa would be the one throwing stuff at him. So that's definitely
That would be him. That would be Randy Quaid. Because they do the anti-fan, right? They do the X across their shirts, and they hate everything. And yeah, anyway.
So like in Southwestern Ontario, fast pitch is really popular on the men's side, right? And
Yes.
so my grandpa coached men's fast pitch like at a high level, and he was just basically the Lou Piniella of men's fast pitch. He just lost it on umpires left, right, and center. So there's some good stories I've heard over the years. But anyway, Med Rosario's playing good baseball, 31 runs, 18 RBIs. I'd like to see an RBIs total come up. He's been bumped up the lineup, so you should see that start to tick up just a little bit. So good time to get in before that total bounces. I mean, by the end of the season, there's a really good chance he's sitting in the 3-hole, right? Because I would assume Cleveland's going to jettison Ramirez at some point. I got to figure that's coming, right? So
such a crummy situation to even have to talk about the fact that like the history of the organization speaks to the fact that they should logically trade their best player.
But even if it's not the history of the organization, they still should do it, right? Like they're not going to win in a window where J Ram's going to be the core. So you need to turn him into pieces for the future. So, as much as, Cleveland fans probably don't want to hear that. I mean, that's the reality they're in right now. What do they say in Avengers? We're in the end game now, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where Cleveland's at. They got to get back to.
They named a movie Endgame, didn't they?
Yeah, they need a new game in Cleveland though, and starts with getting J-Ram out of there. 6 stolen bases, still 4 home runs, 38-15 on the K to walk. So enough to get excited about, right? And what I like is, especially if you're in position leagues, like he's going to give you some outfield eligibility because he's not going to be a shortstop this season. He's going to give you shortstop next season. So there's lots to like about Ahmad Rosario in deep formats as well too. So a guy that you should be targeting before he really starts to blossom. I think there's 20 home runs in this bat. I think that's realistic. We might not see it this year, but I think 20 home runs plus next year is very possible.
Okay, next guy up is his teammate Bobby Bradley, who's come up 7% owned in Yahoo. I just had him up here. Dynasty wise, he's going to be owned. Let's see, where are we on CBS? Just since I've still got the app open, figure I may as well tell everybody. Rostered in 18%, started in 10. So another one of those situations where you might be able to knock on the owner's door. And Ty talked about this earlier in the week, so we don't need to say too much about Bobby Bradley, but return on investment might be something that owner wants, which means you give up a little, you get yourself your Bobby Bradley. And if you feel like you need it, might not be the worst trade you make all year. 20 at bats this year. Ty's giving him the sell. It's okay. Yeah. Ty's giving him the sell. That's the sell. 270 average so far in 20 at bats, 345 OBP, 3 runs, 3 RBIs, and a dinger, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. So it's not like he's got 50% K rate or some major issue yet, but that's certainly a concern, right?
I will say this though about Bobby Bradley, like he's the kind of guy that I might come back to in 3 years once everybody else has given up on him.
When he goes, right? He goes through.
He fits the team post hype kind of profile once he figures out how to hit. So it might not be in Cleveland, but he's a guy I will still stick a pin in it.
Well, this is a team no hype guy, and Jake Fraley with Seattle, 7% owned on Yahoo, 294 average last 2 weeks, but for the season still under 50 at bats, 250 average, 10 runs, 12 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 4 dingers, 13 strikeouts, 19 walks. Can you feel that? Now, fun fact, Dylan Moore is also back. Shed Long is also back with Seattle, but we talked about it earlier in the week. I don't think there will be concerns for Fraley with playing time if this is how he's going to the dish. If he's going and taking pitches and, getting the ball in play when need be. Obviously, he's been fortunate with the runs and RBIs, but this is a really good sign from a guy with very little value in dynasty and redraft. And my TGFBI, my offense is just completely blown up, Ty. All of my hitters, which made me in the top 3 or 4 consistently week over week in my TGFBI league, they're all now hurt. Kyle Lewis, Judge, McNeil, it doesn't matter. You name them, they're hurt. When Acuna's day to day and then he misses 6 days, all that kind of crap. It has like plummeted me down. So I have decided to erode my pitching bench and everyone but Wander Franco. That's the only guy who, for some reason, I'm just going to keep him. I'm going for like these Jake Fraley types, these Bobby Bradley types, because I just need some production right now. And if they're in the right direction, I picked up Patrick Wisdom a couple of weeks ago in TGFBI. It just chug along, right? I'm trying to keep pace here, but it's not going well for me in that league. If you're struggling to, Jake Fraley's one of those guys. I picked him up in our home league, for crying out loud, 14-team league. And since then, I think he's got me 3 or 4 walks. He had a dinger today. So he might actually have 5 home runs in the year. I'm not sure if that was updated or not. I'm the one who did it. Good thing I didn't check. But anyway, Fraley, just like getting it done, enjoy it. This is a wave up. This is not the ascension to greatness for Jake Fraley. This is very much just riding a streak, riding a wave, and do it. Take it. Put him on your team. You're entering week 11. If you think your team's got a chance, you can give up a little and get Jake Fraley. I'm sure of it. I'm sure the owner of Jake Fraley is not like, well, he's the reason that I'm going to win the championship. He's like, well, what can you do for me, right? You got some J2 guy from 19 who's got some hype. Let's talk. I think that's a safe play for both sides. The Jake Fraley owner gets a little return on investment. You get yourself Jake Fraley and you get to ride it out. And maybe he just does Dylan Moore rest of season stuff, right? 800 plus OPS, and you get a good season from him. Absolutely.
Well, and the next guy on the list, I cannot figure out what is keeping him in Boston's lineup. I just don't see what he.
It's like clutch. Yeah, it's weird. Though? Well, I don't know, but I own him in one league. So this is Christian Arroyo, former top 100 prospect, traded from, drafted by San Francisco, traded in the Evan Longoria trade to Tampa Bay. I don't know if he timed out, but he, player value, like underperformance, all that stuff. Ended up in Cleveland last year, from Cleveland to Boston, and then he was okay in Boston. Well, I still have him in a dynasty league from prospect times. So the one league that I have not given up on Christian Arroyo, I have enjoyed his second base, third base eligibility. I hope you can too. 266 average does not tank you. 109 at bats. It's half of what he would be getting if he was starting every day. He was also hurt, but the production's there. 15 runs, 15 RBIs is good. A home run, stolen base and 3 home runs. It's just like, it's okay.
But here's the question though, right? Yeah. Like it is okay, but you have Michael Chavis who's been
right. Better. Why are you playing him?
Like he's not better than Michael Chavis, right? Like, so Chavis clearly has worn out his welcome in Boston, right? Yeah. I think we can all agree on that. But the second person is they signed Kiki Hernandez. Like, put him at second base and bring up Jarren Duran. Like, get it done and over with. Like,
not gonna happen. Why? I don't know, because Christian Arroyo is hitting 266. That's why.
Yeah, like there's like, and it's empty. It's an empty 266.
Very much,
right?
Yeah.
Like I saw him turn a double play yesterday or Friday, and it was kind of nice. So I don't know if that's the sole reason to keep a guy on a baseball team, but maybe he makes really good like hot dogs for the team.
Maybe he's a clubhouse leader. Maybe he's like an Eric Sogard. A what?
Right?
What guy?
Beer and dogs guy, right?
Beer
That's
and
a Red
dogs
Sox thing. Right?
Okay.
Beer and Sox in the game, right?
Chicken wings? Chicken wing. It was all the starting pitchers who were just living life. I mean,
yeah, but they had beer in the clubhouse during the game, right? Like that's, I mean,
they were doing at the MLB level what I was doing at the beer league level.
Yeah, we used to fill up our Gatorade cooler with beer. That was a great move.
We used to just make sure there weren't cops on the other team.
and maybe the front office has the beer. Yeah, right? Maybe the front office has the beer, and that's how Christian Arroyo is still in the lineup. So a guy that we don't know how is still getting playing time either is Albert Pujols in LA. He's with the Dodgers. 269 over the last 2 weeks. Not the worst, right? He's got 10 home runs. Like, that's not nothing. Yeah. Right? Like 16 runs,
serviceable if
RBIs.
You're screwed, right? A lot of first base eligible guys we've talked about tonight, like Bradley. We kind of skipped over Vogelbach, but there wasn't a lot there. It's just in 12 at bats, Vogelbach has been decent. 5 runs, 3 RBIs, 2 home runs. I must be wrong. Sorry. That's got to be way off. 136 at bats. Sorry. Because I was going to say he's got a ton of strikeouts. But he's got 34 Ks, but 26 walks. So Vogelbach's an interesting guy, but to your point with Pujols, like this is 4% owned, so nobody cares about him. But if you've got an injured, maybe you just go pick up Pujols, who seems to be getting.
You're still running Josh Bell out there.
Maybe, yeah, or you're trying to trade Josh Bell and Brendan Rodgers for Pete Alonso. I don't know what everyone's thinking, but he could just be a plug and play stream guy. If you're in daily, I'm sure you can just wait because LA is always going to be the end of the day game. So you could either not put somebody in at first base or DH and then add Pujols later in the day once you know what's going on with the lineups. So it's just the value is going to be there because no one cares. So if you can take advantage of, getting a 270 average, get a couple home runs, a couple walks, limit the Ks, why not from your first base?
Yeah. Well, and I think Ronnie's offering up $30 for Sheffield in the home league. So I think he wants. Yeah.
Wait. Because we just ran ours.
Comment. Yeah. So he's offering up $30 for Sheffield. I think.
No, somebody must have bid that. Somebody must have bid that in the listener league.
That's not okay.
Holy smokes, that's big. We have admitted because we tried to use the Fantrax base setting. So when you go to sign up for a league and customize it, but when you go to sign up for a league, they give you like a base of what they offer. So we took their base and their bench was 4 when you use a 5 outfielder, corner infield, middle infielder setup. And we have determined through our dynasty setting, because we have a 50-man minors, that is not working for us. So we're going to get that sorted out this offseason. We also have some other things that we're brewing to get into with the offseason with a complex league that we're looking to do. I'm looking to do a relegation style league where it'll be 3 leagues under 1 player pool. Very exciting. But a conversation, maybe even all-star break, we could talk about it. But anyway, if someone's doing that in the home league, in the listener league, spending $30, so that's what, $250 we have for FAAB. That's a big investment. I don't know that you need. I don't know that you need to do that. You may want to just check with somebody who's got a ton of pitchers and made a trade, but that's okay.
Or just spend $2. One of the two.
Yeah. So next guy up is Brendan Rodgers, former top prospect with Colorado, getting some playing time now. 57 at bats for the year, 263 average. 4 runs, 11 RBIs, 3 dingers, 13 Ks, 4 walks. He just isn't owned, so it's more redraft because in Dynasty, he's going to be owned, and probably the owner has had him for a while, probably hates him. So you could knock on that door and maybe offer up something. I don't know if the guy's a prospect lover, you could just offer him up the next guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. The next high school infielder that's supposed to be coming along, and just get Brendan Rodgers and ride it out and see what you get from him. Because like you said, Ty, they're clearing it out, right?
Yeah. He's going to get playing time. And they might even find playing time for Garrett Hampson at some point.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not like they've decided, it's Garrett Hampson's job. They're like, no. It's Brendan Rodgers' job, and we're going to try to ship Story off. And then they can both play. And at that point in time, I think Rodgers is your shortstop, and which means he'll have second base eligibility for next year as well as shortstop, which is great. But I truly feel like Rodgers is going to get the at-bats here, and Hampson's not doing enough to earn the job, right? He hasn't taken it. So anyway, somebody who, oh man, like talk about a forgotten soldier, but perfect medicine for the White Sox is Brian Goodwin, who's now just up 400 average, obviously brief, strikeout to walk, 3 runs, 5 RBIs, and a home run for Brian Goodwin, outfield eligible. I mean, if you are pooched, I own him in 1 league where we have a 40-man roster, and I think I'm paying him almost $6 because when I signed him before the 20 season, I was pretty sure he was going to play more. I think it was in Washington. And then he got moved to Pittsburgh. I was like, well, he's definitely going to play in Pittsburgh. And then he didn't play in Pittsburgh. And now he's with the White Sox. I'm like, well, he's definitely going to play for the White Sox. So if he does not get 20 at-bats next week, I'm going to drop him. I'm going to drop his money because it's real money that I'm paying to have him on my team. That's almost 10 Canadian dollars.
He seems like a La Russa guy, though. So I feel like he's going to get
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I just feel like he fits that mold.
Well, there was a rumor that actually from Roto Ronnie, who said he's heard through whatever source, so it was probably Pornhub, that Andrew Vaughn is taking reps at second base, and that could just be a way in which to get him in the lineup, which doesn't seem like a La Russa move, but maybe Brian Goodwin could take reps at second base. So we'll see. Keep a close eye on that anyway. Anyway, last guy, Ty, he's all yours.
Yeah, Miguel Franco is just a guy that quietly is at mediocre, right? I mean, that's your expectation for Miguel Franco. 208 so far this season, 231 at bats, 6 for 19 his last 7 days. 19 runs, 31 RBIs, no stolen bases as expected, 7 dingers, 38-13 on the K to walk. So playing time's there, right? This is just a guy that's going to give you some counting stats and is not owned to the level that a starter should be. And that's why we're bringing him to your attention. So, definitely a guy that should be looked at as a third base option. we all know third base depth is not really super deep. So if you need a guy, there's your guy.
Well, there
Let's
are
get
also
into.
lots of owners. Sorry, Ty, go ahead.
Oh, no, you finish up.
Lots of owners that have disappointment in third base, like the Alec Baum owners, like myself. So this is one of those outlets. So maybe you can sit Baum. I mean, I'm sitting Baum in a couple of dynasty leagues that I'm not happy about because the options aren't there. But this is when somebody who has a 300 average for the week can make me feel a little bit better while I'm watching Baum and being like, is he making a swing adjustment? Is Philly doing something different with the lineup? Like, what's going on with my franchise guy? And in the meantime,
I
get
around.
these.
Looking at Baum going, hey, is he available?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2-star SPs. There's a huge list of starting pitchers. Here are some that you might want to focus on for different purposes. Manoah with Toronto has Boston, then Baltimore. Eovaldi has Toronto tomorrow, Kansas City over the weekend. Lester has Pittsburgh and the Mets. Brubaker has Washington and Cleveland, which that looks okay, and he's got a 3.90 ERA and a 4-5 record, so you could get a win. Your ERA won't get blown up. Peterson with the Mets has the Cubbies in Washington. Lauer with Milwaukee. Did I say that right? Lauer. I knew that. With Kansas City, but he's at Colorado for the weekend, so Gutierrez with Cincinnati. He's playing Milwaukee, and then I think he's at the. Maybe I mixed that up on the sheet. I have that he's playing Cincinnati, but he's not because he is Cincinnati. So I think he's playing Milwaukee tomorrow, and he's either at the Cubbies or at San Diego on the weekend. I'll confirm that because Garrett with Miami is. Oh yeah, so okay. Sorry everybody for the. It is Milwaukee and at San Diego, and then Garrett has the Cubbies, and I'll figure that out too. And then we've got Howard, who in more for redraft. Philly's Howard, St. Louis, and then at San Francisco. So I'll correct my Gutierrez and Garrett muck up. If you want to talk about Manoah, talk about Eovaldi, talk about who you like in this.
Yeah, Howard is the guy I want to touch on first. Is a guy that I think owners should still stay away from. Like I just think he's still extremely vulnerable. He has not turned the corner yet, in my opinion. I do not like the matchups for him. The veterans on both those rosters are going to go hunting this week.
So it's the Dodgers for Howard tomorrow too, Ty.
Yeah, so Dodgers and Giants are who we're looking at there.
Yeah, so, Dodgers and Giants. So it's not a great stream.
Yeah, so don't love that.
And he's at LA too. Sorry.
And I don't like Braxton Garrett either. Those two guys are for sure are out. Like if I'm looking at anybody on this list, I'm going to sneak in with John Lester, right? I think Pittsburgh and the Mets right now are a great play. The Mets have been playing great overall, record-wise, but it's been mainly on the back of good pitching and good defense, right? So, not so long ago we talked about how bad the Mets defense was, but it's starting to look a little bit better, even though Dom Smith dropped what was a fly ball to his chest today. That can't happen, but, gave me a Machado hit, I think, or no, it was Tommy Pham.
I didn't see that one.
But anyway, point is, I like Lester in that matchup. I always like veterans in stream plays. I'll be honest. I generally skew to that direction. Eovaldi, for me, I never touch Eovaldi. Like, just a guy I stay away from. It doesn't really fit what I look for in a stream. He's got Toronto, who could put up 12 on him.
Right.
He could also shut him down. Right? Like, it's just that Toronto is maybe the most dangerous stream opponent going right now. Second or just ahead of San Diego. Like both those two teams are really similar. Like they can stack it up or they can disappear on any given night right now.
And it's a getaway game as well tomorrow with Eovaldi and Boston.
I forgot about that. That changes a little bit for me. That makes it a little more interesting. I'm not gonna lie.
And then Kansas City on the weekend. I look at Kansas City similar to Toronto, Ty. Like they can put up a ton of runs. And Kansas City also. So these are the other guys that we don't really need to focus on. But Arrieta's a 2-start. Matt Boyd, Brad Keller, Glasnow and Lind. I mean, they're going to be owned. Wainwright is owned. Let's say Austin Gomber. We've talked too much about him, so we don't need to. Denelson Lamet is another one. Bundy Mania. Peacock. I don't know if that's weird with it. Yeah. So Peacock's an option. Alex Wood. These guys are kind of owned, or Peacock I wouldn't consider. Because he's going to be, who's he? He's at the Giants, and then I forget who Arizona plays this weekend. But it's not a good one when I was looking. And then you've got like Marco Gonzalez going up against Minnesota, against Kenta Maeda. Those aren't great options either. But it's Tony Goslin with the Dodgers. So depending on your league size, it's possible that Tony Goslin's available for a 2-start week. that would be interesting too. But I just chose. I went with Howard
even
over.
if you're just getting Gonsolin to own him, right? Like that's not a bad own.
Right. Future play. And in Dynasty, you're not gonna. He's been that wiry guy. So your time to buy Gonsolin Dynasty wise, I think that's over now that he's back and starting. But Howard's got a lot of Ks, but he's still learning, like you were saying. And then Garrett, I just like the idea. Like people think the Marlins suck, and everyone's like, oh, like Toronto plays Miami next week, I think. Like whatever, 10 days from now.
Middle of next week. Yep.
Midweek. Okay. Oh, right. That's the two. Yeah. So, and people are like, oh, the Jays schedule eases up. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't ease up. And also, if you want to,
I mean, moving from Boston to New York to pretty much anywhere is a little bit of easing up.
Well, it's easing up in the sense that you're not taking on teams that are, I would say the Yankees are kind of overachieving at the moment, but anyway, I just feel like Miami's a better team than that. And if they're having Garrett in, Garrett's going to have the opportunity to win. Now, of course, he's got to pitch well, right? Like that goes, it's automatic. You got to pitch well. Got to keep the ball under control. But all of these options, like honestly, there's not one where I'm like, oh, that one, right? Like, oh, like if I'm looking, I'm like, well, for the sake of simplicity with two starts, Brubaker probably has the two least powerful lineups. But to your point, Ty, with Lester, Pittsburgh and the Mets, it's just that do you catch the Mets hot or do you catch the Mets cold? And
I just think if there's somebody on this list, like that's my guy. That's what that's where I'm going with.
So then let's do this. Let's check this out next Sunday. Let's see how Lester did and let's see how Brubaker did for us.
One last thing I want to touch on is Manoah, because Manoah would be a close one for me as well. I'm still not loving the mechanics yet. Like the stuff's there. He just isn't consistent enough. But something I saw on the broadcast on Friday, they were talking about Rafael Devers. I don't know if you knew this, Robbie, but the book is kind of out on Devers in terms of can't hit the fastball. And so what they were talking about is during the Houston series last week, they threw him 35 straight fastballs. To a good major league hitter, 35 straight fastballs should not get you out. Right? Like that's
Alec Baum. Like Alec Baum can't hit a fastball either. Yeah. So okay, I didn't know that. I just don't like Devers.
But the reason I mentioned it in this part of the show though is because Manoah is a fastball heavy guy. So there's a couple strikeouts for him, and that Boston lineup is susceptible right now. Like they look like they're reeling just a touch. Peeling off a rookie could be the time for them to bounce back, but the heavy fastball could play.
And late in the Boston lineup too, Bobby Dahlback, who's not getting talked about because he's not 2020 Bobby Dahlback, who overachieved. He's been getting a little more power lately. Now it's not optimum, but he said, I think he hit homers in 2 of the last 4 for sure, but I think 2 of the last 3 games. And that's, that's lengthening out the Boston lineup, making it a little bit harder to deal with. But as well, Christian Arroyo, right? He's going to get a hit tomorrow, Ty. Guarantee you. 266 average for that guy. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about save hold leaders, because we can talk about save leaders, but let's talk about save hold. That's next guy up. That's trades. That's whatever. So we've got 2, 4, 6, top 8 in the league. Ty, you already know the number. I was a little surprised to see how high it was for the league leader. What were your thoughts here? Because we're 60-ish. Where are we in games played for the year?
I'm not that surprised because of how bad the hitting has been, right? So there's going to be a lot more save opportunities when the offense is just not producing at the same level, right? So for me, that's a bit of an obvious one as an outcome. And it's usually where I target a lot of my like late closers is I look at, okay, who's going to have the most low scoring games? And therefore, when they are in a game that they're going to win, it's going to be a save, right? So you look at what Pittsburgh has been for the last 20 years or so, like they've done a lot of that. A lot of their closers have, Melanson's one of those guys, right? That just stacked up saves because the opportunities were there, not because he closed 98% of them. It was just because he had a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. So here's the league leaders from bottom to the top. We've got Liam Hendricks with the White Sox, Alex Reyes with St. Louis, Hensel Robles with Minnesota, Hader with Milwaukee, Kimbrel with the Cubs, McGee and Trevor Rogers both with San Francisco, and then Mark Melancon leading the way. The only little note to this is that Lucas Sims with Cincinnati has had 3 saves, specifically saves, in the last 2 weeks, and only 45% owned. He was the only guy, Ty, that I could find in a straight save league that had ownership under 50% and 3 saves or more. So they're hard to come by in all formats. But if you're looking for like next man up in Cincinnati, Lucas Sims might be available in your league, might be the guy. But back to your point. So 27 innings pitched for Melanson, 66 .66 or decimal 66 ERA. So he just hasn't had any blow up. And when you're a good pitcher and he's on a good team, San Diego, he's doing well, but he only has 22 Ks. It's weird that the two guys at the top, so he's got 19 save holds. Rogers, McGee both have 18 on the same team. Kimbrel has 17. Hader, Robles, Reyes, and Hendricks all have 16. So they're all close. Like give a week, right? This could all be reversed in order.
You have a lot of power arms towards the bottom of this list, right?
Yeah.
The top two guys are more finesse guys. Like Melanson has a beautiful hook. Rogers has all kinds of weird things going on. But different, right? And I mean, that's where they're getting it done. Is they're different, and the Tampa Bay's bullpen's a perfect example of what different can do. So
yeah,
that's
as a team
bullpen, yeah. But even as a pitcher, though, right? Like if you have a guy that like a starter, you want to go out and be consistent for 6 innings, right? You want him to execute off of one release point as much as possible. In a relief situation, you want it to look as strange as possible, right? You want that hitter who's comfortable to looking at one point for release to now have to look in 4 different spots. Like that's,
we're
absolutely starting to see that change, right?
Yes, definitely. And I feel like with the fact that McGee is a higher K guy, so 27 and a third for him, 34 Ks, that is giving that different look to allow Rogers to come in and, have his 17 Ks and 32 and 2/3. I mean, if he was a starter and you stretch that out, those numbers, everyone would hate him, right? Because they'd say, oh, no value and like this is luck and whatever. But like you just said, Ty, it's the different look late in the game. It's throwing hitters off, and that's, creating an advantage again for San Francisco, who's like team overachieve. If we're picking a team that has done things that nobody expected, Boston's on that list. Maybe they'd be leading the way for the AL, and San Francisco might be leading the way for the NL. Boston doesn't have the leader on here, but their former closer, Craig Kimbrel, he has had quite the resurgence in 26 and a third with 42 Ks and a decimal 68. So here's my question for you, Ty. We talked about Kimbrel earlier in the week or on our last episode. So if you haven't caught up, go back and check that one out. But what do you think? Would you be interested in a dynasty pickup of Craig Kimbrel for rest of season and whatever you could get from him beyond if your team is in contention? Or do you think that cost, and if you have a type of cost in mind, share, but do you think that cost would be worth it to you for Kimbrel?
I just bought him in our home league, right? Like he's now rostered.
No, but you're not competing in that league. I will crush you.
Yeah. So, if I can ever be healthy, I will compete. If I'm not healthy, then
hey, you can't talk to fantasy baseball dudes about guys being injured. I mean, we're all there. We're all taking bullets.
100%. I'm just saying, I've specifically had it isolated to pitching in that league, which in an 8x8 will hurt you. So that's been my big thing. But anyway, Kimbrel is I would almost put him back into must own. Right.
Okay.
I'm very close to putting him back to that. And I think his value is even better because when you talk about closers, there's nothing better than a closer having to prove himself to a new fan base. Like that ego, that mentality required to end a game. So I think Kimbrel's a must have right now because he's, in my opinion, an absolute must trade asset. And even if he doesn't get traded, that means Chicago's in contention. He's going to give you value. If he gets traded, he's going to end up on a team that gives you value. So I think he's a must-own, in my opinion.
Okay, I agree. I think now's the time to pick up the guys with the jobs that should not lose it, even if they're traded. And that's where a Rogers would be somebody I have a little concern with. Certainly no concern with McGee. Now, if it's saves only, of course, you're not going to want McGee, excuse me, at his price. But I own him in a save hold league where I gave him, I think, a 2-year deal. And because his contract with the Giants was 2 years, I thought safe play. Ty's talked highly of him in the past. And when I kind of had a look about how badly he performed in Colorado and listening to some of the other people we had in the offseason, Nicholas Gott was awesome to talk to because he said Colorado just makes pitchers less effective. So if you have a good Colorado, again, talking about Colorado pitchers, if you have a good Colorado pitcher in Colorado, that means that elsewhere they should be better, which is another reason why we really like John Gray. So on this list, I'm not bowled over by anyone. I'm really happy that Liam Hendricks doesn't suck 43 Ks and 27 and a third innings, signed the big deal in the offseason. So I think that's important to help the rest of the closers get paid because they deserve it. They're coming in and they're like, like punters in football, like they're criticized for everything they do wrong. They can't do anything right unless they have 50 saves. So, but Alex Reyes was the one guy I did want to talk about because we're dynasty, and Alex Reyes was like unanimous top 100 prospect for 3 years, depending on your list, probably like your person, 5 years they could have kicked around, or he could have kicked around as a top 100 prospect. And then he got like 250 innings, which I think whatever it was, he was like 1/3 of an inning away from losing prospect eligibility, but he didn't because he got hurt again. So he had to like remain on lists for like an off season, and people were just like done, right? Like absolute prospect fatigue. I don't want him anymore. He's been hurt too much. He's been this, he's been that. Well, look what's ended up happening to him so far in his first full MLB season. 31 innings so far, 44 Ks, a .87 whip, 16 save holds. I mean, if this is what we've talked about before. If a guy doesn't make it as a starter, they could turn into, which we can now reference, they could be Alex Reyes. I think that's fair to say.
Well, the only thing I want to add to that, just in a dynasty format, like odds are if you own Alex Reyes, you invested a ton into him, right? So you either spend an early pick or you spend a ton of money in a contract, right? And so the only thing I would consider here, depending on where your team's at, like if you're contending this year, then hold. But I would really look at moving Alex Reyes because
getting that return.
Well, just like if you have a big contract, like this might be the only time you get it off your desk.
Okay,
right? Like so that's just something to think about. Like if you like, yeah, cool. He might be great for a year, but as he normalizes, like from elite to like good, right? Because he's elite right now. He's probably gonna be above average, right, as a closer, and or late inning reliever, whatever he ends up being. Could be a mediocre starter long term. Either way, probably doesn't make up for what you spent. So if you can recover that, like if you look at long term play,
yeah.
Like so, just unless you're in contention, like I would strongly look at this as the moment to move him.
That's it, because I'm not an Alex Reyes owner. I don't think I have him anywhere right now. So I don't have the mindset of I've owned him this long. So I have to say, okay, well, I own Brent Honeywell, as we all know. If you're welcome to the podcast, if you're new here, so I have him. So if this is what Brent Honeywell became, how would I feel? And I was thinking I'd be really happy because I've waded through all this crap, all these injuries, like, is he going to get promoted? No, he's not. But he didn't have that suppression season. He had that injury. And I think
it's a little easier if you spent the draft pick as opposed to a contract league where you bought him for probably $15 to $20, depending on your format.
Right. Like real money auction league. I did own Alex Reyes and traded him, and he got dropped or whatever the deal was. I ended up with him off my roster because I had paid, I think it was 12, almost 13 actual dollars to have him. And I'm like, oh no, this, like, any 4 more years of him. And even in that format now, like elite closers in the off season went for over 15. So his value in that league for what he would cost right now is fine. But to your point, Ty, when he normalizes, then, he could, if he's only a 6 through 15 type closer over the rest of that contract, then he's not necessarily going to be worth it. And
it's one of those things, like if you sell him for a good return and he ends up being great, like cool. Like you took risk away, right? So again, just analyze where you're at as a team. I say this all the time. Like I'm always doing that, Robbie, as you know. But just take a look at this moment. If you're in contention, hold. But if not, take a look, see what the future can do, because you might be able, you mentioned earlier in the show, you might be able to get the next guy, right? The next one coming. And that's how you win, is you stagger your guys appropriately. So,
and I had one more, sorry, it's dynasty related, but it's one more interesting trade. I wanted your thoughts on this. So 30 team points league that you played in last year, the to be named later league that we run on FanTrack. So 35 man minors, I think is what we've got now. And then you have a 26 man MLB. It's contracts, just salaries. We do the MLB cap. So you have players that are $40 million. You have players that are $500,000 that are rookies you get for 6 years, blah, blah, blah. We had a trade this week. It was Jackson Cower after his first blow up. He has since had a second, and not cool, man. Not cool. KC, sort these guys out. Anyway, it was Jackson Cower. It was Nick Lodolo, Cincinnati, former first round pick, highly touted prospect as well. And Seth Beer, Arizona Diamondback.
Oakland. Oh no, sorry, yeah, you're right. Yep,
No,
he was in the Greinke trade. Yep.
yes. So those
Sorry.
3 for Grayson Rodriguez. All of those players are all in the same contract. So you'll get each guy for 6 years. And he traded. So one guy traded 3, I would call them all safely top 100 prospects, for one Grayson Rodriguez, who's at AA. All 3 of the other guys are AAA.
What's
Sorry,
the league
Lodolo's
format?
AA. Well, it's points league. So
Yeah,
I
you
thought,
gotta go with the multiplayer side. You
yeah,
have
I
to.
thought it was a crazy. It was the guy who got Grayson made the request and said he'll give up these 3 dudes to get it done. So the guy
Jeez.
that made the deal also owns Cole, who's over $30 million in that league. So over 15% of your salary. So he's in favor of having a Jackson Cower on his team, having a Nick Lodolo who's up higher and should be up sooner to help to mitigate his high salary guys. Cause
Like,
you have studs and duds essentially, but
like
it's in salary terms.
Grayson's really good, but like Lodolo's not that far behind.
It's exactly what
Uh,
I'm thinking. And you
yeah,
got Cower and only one bad start out of Cower and a pretty good track
like
record. And you got
yeah, like
Seth Beer, who can be a good in points format, 3+ point per game guy. I thought it was a wonky trade. And sometimes that happens, right? Like that's his guy. Obviously, that's his guy. Grayson
yeah,
Rodriguez
like
is his guy.
listen, I
Crazy.
love Grayson Rodriguez. Like I've seen it bandied around recently. Like I've seen this for a little bit, but he might be the best pitching prospect in the minors right now.
Yep.
Right? Like maybe not short-term guy per se yet, but he might be the best talent down there. So, you have to look at it from that perspective as well. Like Cower could never be, right? Like Cower wasn't necessarily supposed to be a rock star. He's supposed to be good.
Yep.
Beer could be average. Beer could fizzle out. Like, I would have thought we would have seen Beer by now, to be 100% honest.
Yeah. I would have thought I had a beer.
Yeah. And then Lodolo, I think, is exactly where we all thought he was going to be. He's Aaron Nola 2.0 kind of thing.
Yeah. Looks like that's the guy in the deal, right? That's the one that makes it weird for me is that Grayson and Lodolo could both have really similar within, like, I don't know what within 15% points total production over the course of the 6-year contract when they're both up. I think that's reasonable too. You get injuries, you get other things, but I'm just saying when they're there for that contract period, I think they're even point per game average could be within 15%. So to give up the additional 2 guys, to me, that's a big ask. But we're gonna talk prospects with our second episode of the week or whatever with the next episode, and I'll make sure that we kind of circle around some of those AA pitchers because we're getting close to promotion time. We're seeing a lot of the injuries pile up, so we're going to start to have a look at some rotations. We've been looking at league leaders. Now we're going to start to dive into some of the teams and who could be coming up within them because that's what a lot of guys are really starting to get interested in. We're getting close to trade deadlines. Everybody wants to get the next starting pitcher, but they don't want to have to pay the price for the next high prospect starting pitcher. So who's the next guy that can come up and be fun and exciting? That's what we'll cover next.
Absolutely. Love it. Great spot to leave it, Robbie. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening on the live stream across the platforms. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter at DingersPod. But until next time, it's been Robbie and Tyler on